morning everyone, I am Zachary Subla and I'll be your little teacher for today. So for today's lesson, we are going to be discussing about identifying solid figures. Okay, so first of all, you may ask, Teacher SELAH, how do you exactly identify a solid figure? Well, let's see. So solid figures are identified according to the features that are unique to each type of solid. Specifically, according to its number of faces, edges, vertices, and the shape of the base. Okay, so now that we know how to identify a solid figure, we will dissect our lesson into two subtopics. The first one will be differentiating solid figures from plain figures, and the second one will be identifying nets of solid figures. Let's start off with differentiating solid figures from plain figures. So these objects right here are real-world representation of geometric solids. These geometric solids are most commonly classified as plain and solid figures. So right here we have the plain figures. So plain figures are two-dimensional shapes and they look flat. I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with the plain figures already. But here we have the examples. We have the heart, the square, the triangle, the star, the pentagon, and the diamond. Okay. So now that we know what are plain figures, we will move on to solid figures. Now solid figures are three-dimensional shapes. Three-dimensional shapes right here. So these are three-dimensional shapes right here. So we have the three-dimensional shapes. Okay. So a solid figure that has all flat surfaces is called a polyhedron. So right here we have the examples of polyhedrons. We have the cube, rectangular pyramid, triangular prism, and the rectangular prism. Okay, so the cylinder, cone, and sphere are not polyhedrons because they have some curved surfaces. Okay, so now that we know which shapes our solid figures are polyhedrons and not, we will now be moving on to the base, edge, and the vertex. So as you can see, for the rectangular prism, it has a total of 6 faces. Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so now that we have confirmed it has 6 faces, the edges are the lines, basically the lines of each solid figure, and the vertex is where the lines meet. Okay. Okay, so we have here the table of how many faces, edges, and vertices each geometric solid has. So you may copy it and pause it if you wish to. Okay, so I will just now assume that you already have copied this and you don't have any questions. Let's move on now to our activity. So for our activity, you will just have to identify the following plain and solid figures. So you may write your answers in your notebook, and again, you may pause this video if you want. Okay, let us enter. So for number 1, we have a triangle. For number 2, we have a cylinder. For number 3, we have a rectangular prism. For number 4, we have a cone. For number 5, we have a heart. For number 6, we have a sphere. And for number 7, we have a square. And lastly, for number 8, we have a circle. Okay, so now that we know how to differentiate plain and solid figures, we will now be moving on to our second subtopic, which is identifying nets of solid figures. So these right here are examples of nets. So a net is a two-dimensional figure that can be folded to confirm a space or a solid figure. So as you can see, these examples of nets in here, you can fold them to form a solid figure. So for the first example of the net right here, this is the net of the cube. So the net of the cube is composed of 6 squares, representing the cube's 6 square faces. So now so as the triangular pyramid. For triangular pyramid, the net is also composed of 4 triangles representing the faces, the 4 triangular faces of the pyramid. Okay. So right here we have more examples of nets. So for the square-based pyramid, it has 1 square and 4 triangles. For the pentagonal prism, it has 5 rectangles and 2 pentagons. For the cylinder, we have 1 rectangle and 2 circles. For the hexagonal prism, we have 2 hexagons and 6 rectangles. Okay, so I will just assume again that you guys don't have any more questions, and we will now be proceeding to our activity. So for activity, you will just have to identify the following solid figures according to the given nets. Okay, so for number 1, again, my bad. For again, you may pause the video and answer this in your notebook. Okay, for number 1, we have 6 squares. So you may try to think again that what I have discussed earlier, that this net has 6 squares, and what geometric solid or solid figure has 6 square bases. It is a cube. For number 2, we have 3 rectangles and 2 triangles. So if you would try to imagine folding this net, it would form a triangular prism. For number 3, we have 1 square and 4 triangles. So it is you choose to imagine again and find out what it is. It is a square-based pyramid. So right here, we have the names of each solid figure for the net. Okay. So now we will be ending our class. Thank you so much for listening to my discussion, and I hope you have a beautiful day, and God bless you all. Thank you.